In advance of the Holy and Great Council, the church leaders decided to approve a number of documents in advance. This raises the interesting question, so what is left for them to do at the Sabor itself, at the council? The documents include various topics: marriage, fasting, how the church deals with questions of autonomy, and of course the diaspora. I'm kind of surprised because a number of the topics are simply a restatement of existing church policy dogma, especially when it comes to fasting and marriage. Obviously, in a modern society, the strict requirements associated with fasting and marriage are not being enforced. So the question is, are they going to be enforced from now on? Or economy is going to be again granted to Orthodox Christians in these two areas. Economy means bending of the rules so that the kind of strictness that is visualized ideally is certainly not what is being practiced. We can think of it, we can discuss it, but we talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. Now there are two other areas which one of them is of great interest to Ukrainians, and that is a question of autonomy. What is missing is any discussion of autocephaly. Neither autonomy or autocephaly are something that in the past the Patriarch of Constantinople administered or controlled. Historically, it was always the emperor or the sultan that made these decisions. Even the fateful decision of 1685-86, when the Patriarchate of Constantinople handed over the Metropolia of Kiev to Moscow, that was not so much influenced by a decision made within the Holy Synod as to a decision that was made by the Sultan. The Orthodox Church has problems in this area because the church canons don't really provide any guidance. The document that was prepared for the Council does not provide any new information. It does not propose taking any new steps or decisions how to proceed. Everything is based on the old historical traditions, and it is assumed that those will suffice to solve all of the problems. But it is not solving problems. There are many Orthodox jurisdictions that are considered uncanonical, and the document, in my mind, does not provide any solution to resolving these issues. But the one document that I take the greatest issue with personally is the one on the diaspora. It is the same document that was produced in 2009 at the Patriarchal Center in Chambézy, Switzerland, in which the Ecumenical Patriarch reserves the right to administer all Orthodox people living outside the medieval canonical territories as outlined in the canons of the Byzantine Empire. So all territories of Western Europe, of the New World, North and South and Central America, Oceania, Eastern Asia, Australia, are now to be considered his exclusive domain. The fact that the diaspora is made up of different ethnic groups, the fact that we live in Canada, in North America, and even in other places, Central, South America, Australia, in multicultural, multi-ethnic states, countries, where people have the democratic right to get together, socialize, organize, create their own institutions, cultural, scientific, scholarly, academic, even religious. This document basically takes that right away from all of us. In other words, in North America, or specifically in Canada, we cannot have a Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And this is exactly the same position that Vladika Yuri has taken back in 2010 at the Sobor, where he stated that because we do not have exclusive rights in Canada, we cannot have a church, we cannot be autocephalous. Basically, he is allowing the Patriarch of Constantinople, the Ecumenical Patriarch, to usurp those rights. And we're giving them away as Canadian citizens without even trying to oppose or trying to get something in return for doing so. Personally, I feel that our church leaders in Canada do not have the right to cede our rights and privileges that are guaranteed by the Canadian Constitution to the Patriarch of Constantinople. And this document on the diaspora has been roundly criticized by other churches. There have been meetings of the Assembly of Canonical Bishops of North America, of the United States, at which it was admitted in 2014 that this plan is not working. The Bulgarians want to look after the Bulgarian diaspora. The Serbians want to look after the Serbian diaspora. And of course, the Russians are looking after the interests of their diaspora. And anybody else that they believe belongs to the Russian world, the so-called Ruski Mir. So I find if this document is accepted at the Council that it is very problematic, because in fact it causes a division between our mother church, the church in Ukraine, the Patriarchate of Kiev, whether or not that patriarchate is recognized. I have heard statements made by the Patriarch himself, Filaret, and his basically right-hand man, Bishop Yevstrati, that should the Patriarchate of Kiev become recognized as canonical, they will have their hands tied as far as the diaspora. They are already giving up on the diaspora in favor of the Ecumenical Patriarch. I found such statements very disturbing, because I live in a democratic, multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious country like Canada. If the Canadian government allows our church to exist, if we have a charter which is an act of parliament granting the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada its status as a church, we cannot have our church leaders, our community leaders, or individuals giving up on the church and ceding our Canadian rights to the Patriarch of Constantinople. This I find very upsetting personally, and the results of the council are not very encouraging, because this is one of the documents that has received pre-approval. So it will be simply rubber stamped, and we as the Ukrainian diaspora, whether in Canada or the United States or Brazil or Australia or Spain or Germany or France or England, wherever, Japan, the Philippines, Hawaii, we have to stand up for our rights and the right to be governed by our one true Mother Church, and that is the Church of Kiev. It is interesting that people forget that it was Petro Mohyla in his Orthodox confession, which was approved by the patriarchs in 1672, that clearly states there is but truly one Mother Church, and that is the Church of Jerusalem. And yet, time and time again, the Patriarch of Constantinople refers to his church as the Mother Church. He is breaking his own canons if he says that. But for us Ukrainians in the diaspora, the Mother Church is the Church of Kiev.